Don't forget, a door wreath isn't just for Christmas. Hello and welcome, I'm Julie from Julie Davis Flower Workshops and Florist, the online flower arranging classes. I don't know whether you saw the video I posted last time round when I said that the Queen of England doesn't take down her Christmas tree until after February the 6th, and that's a tribute to her father who died in February 1952, and of course this year is her 70th Jubilee. And it got me thinking, why do we have to take our Christmas door wreaths down when we could enjoy them year round? Now, shock horror, I had a nude door wreath on my front door this year. Nude in the sense that it was beautiful greenery and I attached a ribbon to it, but no more decorations were added. Now what I'm going to do, although it was a very minimal door wreath, I'm going to take off the Christmassy tartan ribbon and replace it with something isn't quite so red, green and gold Christmas bling like, and I've got a beautiful nude ribbon that I'm going to put on instead. And talking about nude and door wreaths, I have even got a even more nude door wreath, and that was I hung up the bare metal wreath frame that is the base for all these Christmas door wreaths, well, a lot of the Christmas door wreaths anyway, and I have just almost lassoed it onto the peg rail on my kitchen wall. So I'll see if I can post a picture of that and you can have a look. Now this is the perfect time of the year. I know it's after Christmas, and if you are taking down your Christmas decorations and your Christmas door wreath, you're probably aiming to do that before 12th night, which is the 6th of January. So now is the absolute latest time you've got to go out on your own personal walking safari of all the Christmas door wreaths that are in your neighbourhood, and you may well find that they give you some inspiration and ideas for your Christmas door wreath at the end of this year, or perhaps seasonal door wreaths throughout the year. So come with me as I take you through a few of the streets around my town. I've taken some photographs and we can have a little chat about whether we think they're yay or nay, and what we can learn from other people's door wreaths, what we like, what we don't like, and also how to attach your door wreath to your front door. You know, do you go positioning it high, low or in the middle? And don't forget to leave me a comment. Let me know what your favourite door wreath is, what sort of styles you are drawn to, and also whereabouts on your door do you hang your wreath. So the first door wreath is this one, number 40, a lovely sort of peachy nude coloured front door, which is very similar to the ribbon I'm going to rehang my door wreath with. But rather interestingly, I was talking about lassoing my metal door wreath frame on my peg rail in my kitchen. It looks like that's what's been done on this house. So you can see that this house has a door knocker, it has a little spy hole at the top, and I suspect that's why they've hung their door wreath a bit lower, because they wanted people to be able to knock on the door but also to see who was calling at the front door. And there's like a knob above the letterbox, and that is where the door wreath has been fixed. Well, has it been fixed? Just been looped over the top. So this is quite a minimal door wreath, and it looks like probably the householder might have made it themselves. Looks like it's got a mix of conifer, so presumably cut out from the garden, and a few pine cones on it as well. So I think this is a lovely door wreath. I think it is probably homemade because it's not quite perfectly circular. Personally, I would have hung this door wreath a little bit higher, well, higher, and covering the doorknob and that little spy hole, but of course if you can't see who's calling, that may be a problem. Number 39. Now this is a lovely muted grey front door, and you can see how the door wreath matches those muted tones, so it looks like it's just total greenery with a few decorative details on the bottom. And notice the little bit of ribbon at the bottom. So where do you put your ribbons, and do you like ribbons on your door wreath? I must admit I tend to put my ribbon at sort of 12 o'clock, but I'm noticing there's a fashion now to have the ribbons put down at 6 o'clock and possibly just have them as tails, and certainly the fashion at the moment is to have very narrow ribbon that doesn't have the sort of Christmas bling attached to it. So again, we're talking about muted tones of coppers and greys, that kind of thing. And we're at number 101. So a lovely pale door, front door again, and I do prefer the positioning of this door wreath. It looks like it's been just lifted up and put over that door knocker, which has got quite a handy shape on it. It looks like it's not going to fall off there. And I think this one's probably been homemade as well, which I love to see. Can you see the bits of greenery are really starting to fan out? I think that's probably conifer again. My personal preference is for a slightly more tamed look, but it is just personal preference. And can you see the door wreath when you look around it? It's got loads and loads of greenery fanning out sort of from 1 o'clock through to about 9 o'clock, but that top section is a little bit not so much bare, but it isn't so full as the rest of the door wreath. On the one hand, I think that the door wreath needs a bit more greenery to complete that circle, but on the other, if you look, there's like this diagonal line that goes through, and you can see it does almost look as if it was planned that below the diagonal line it was going to be a full door wreath with lots of greenery, and above it was going to be a tiny bit sparse. Out of personal preference, I think I would have preferred to have seen that lovely soft greenery being continued right the way around the door wreath. And look at this one, an olive green door wreath, absolutely jam-packed with pine cones. But can you see that the door wreath has become slightly elongated? This might be personal preference of somebody making this door wreath at home that specifically wanted a more elongated look. I suspect that the base of this door wreath is being made from twisted vines, so perhaps dogwood stems or willow stems, something like that, and it's just the weight of the pine cones has adapted the shape, so it's pulled it out of that more traditional circular shape that we would expect. There's lots of textural interest on this door wreath, so not only that dense coverage of pine cones, it's also got the lotus seed heads and some cinnamon sticks as well, and then with a fine ribbon bow at the top and a little star. I'm wondering whether that star's a pick out of a bouquet that's been saved from previous years. So number 83, a pale green front door and a very traditional door wreath, but notice those narrow ribbons. So there's a narrow ribbon at the top, which is hanging, fixing the door wreath in place, and then the narrow ribbons at the bottom, which are just catching the breeze and giving a bit of natural movement. So this is quite a heavy and dense door wreath, and if you wanted to replicate this look, you would need to really forensically study this door wreath. So if you like this kind of full door wreath, do make a list of all the ingredients and work out how many of each of the components have been used so you can make your own really full door wreath next time. Here we are at number 73, a pale purple, perhaps a lilac front door here with a really quite simple door wreath. It's quite small, this wreath, and I'm wondering whether it might originally have come from a supermarket or market stall, and the householder has added their own decorations. So a very simple traditional bow and the placement of just 3 pine cones, and I can see 2 little stars at the bottom, so you don't have to go overboard. It's all down to personal taste. So this house here has got a pale blue front door with a silver round circle knocker, and the door wreath here is picking up on those subtle details, that's understated details. So the door wreath looks quite full. I think this might be an artificial door wreath with some tinted eucalyptus, but it's got lots and lots of textural interest. So although we think of it as a Christmas door wreath because it's been up at Christmas time, this certainly look good all year round from the cold winter months and also into high summer as well. I reckon the householder here has made this door wreath as well. So it's got a base of curled twigs, so these are probably stems of willow or dogwood, something that's a little bit pliable, and then they've overbound that with some Christmas bling bits. It looks like they are beads and a sort of tight tinsel. So this is probably a bit more minimal that I would personally choose. I do like to have greenery on my door wreath. But it's a really lovely decoration, and here they've attached it, the position I really like, about a third of the way down the door, and they've attached it by a piece of string onto that round door knocker, so it's not in the way of the knocker and it's not in the way of the letterbox. I really fancy the look of this door with a lovely black front door, a lion head knocker, that traditional red ribbon, and a mix of greenery. It looks absolutely fabulous. And again, featuring eucalyptus, which seems to be the foliage at the moment. So lots of the houses in town, they have their front doors right on the pavement, so I can easily photograph them from the street. But this house here has a little bit of a front garden, so the shot is from further away. I really like the look of this door wreath. It looks so traditional. I love it against that green front door, and also the topiaries that align the path up to the front door. So it looks like it's got a mix of greenery with some little bit of decorations and just looks really fabulous. A slightly more modern house here, grey front door, and again quite a minimal look. So this door wreath again looks like it's been made on a twig base, and then the decoration is just round the bottom section. So it's got an area of detail at about 6 o'clock at the bottom, and then fronds of greenery up either side, and then keeping the top piece of the door wreath very minimal. So it just looks more planned and intentional than that first one we talked about, where it did seem to have a definite horizontal diagonal line going through the door wreath. So it just goes to show you design and make and buy a door wreath that suits your look and your personal taste. Number 48, again a very traditional door wreath, so a mix of greenery, and I can see all the traditional Christmas elements: pine cones, berries, bundles of cinnamon sticks, and can you see the citrus fruit that's been added on as well. This has been added on in 2 pairs with 3 little segments making up each placement. Personally for me, I feel like it looks like it's got a pair of wonky eyes on the front of the door wreath, and I would have put another grouping of the slices underneath, so it would have had the 3 placements forming a triangle throughout the design. And because I was standing really close to this door wreath when I took the photograph, I could see that the citrus fruit slices, although they'd been put on when they were dry, they had actually started to take up moisture and they had started to go mouldy, and that's just one of the downfalls that you're going to have if you do ever put dried fruit onto your door wreath. Once you've got them out into the elements, they do rehydrate and they do quite often go mouldy, and if that bothered you as the householder, I would probably just have pulled the orange slices out, or perhaps even zhuzhed them up with a bit of spray paint just to disguise the mould. But really, I don't think it matters that you see that beauty in the door wreath, and in fact standing back from the street, I don't think a casual passerby would notice. It's just that I had my forensic florist eyes on at the time. This front door made me giggle. Don't you think those 2 little lights, the 2 windows at the top of the door, make it look as if this door has got a face? So again, a very minimal door wreath attached to the gold ring knocker, and then with a little wooden cutout of a street scene. So it just goes to show you can put anything you like on your door wreath. It doesn't have to be pine cones galore. And another fabulous wreath in the traditional style, but with lots and lots of decorative details dotted all around. Now I'm wondering whether this has come from one of our local flower farmers. It certainly looks like the style of wreath that I noticed that they were making this year. And can you see that velvet ribbon? It's just got a sort of loopy bow at the top and then the long tails coming down. So I think if you want to update your look for next Christmas, put to one side the wide wire-edged ribbon with all the Christmas patterns on them, and perhaps have a look out for narrower ribbons in earthy tones, particularly those that are velvet. Another traditional door wreath here. Now if you look in this door wreath, it's another way of attaching your door wreath through your front door. So it's got a ribbon at the top and it goes up and over the front door, and I reckon that's probably been attached to the inside edge of the front door with a drawing pin. And see how the ribbons that on the bottom of the door wreath are cut just short enough so they don't get in the way of the letterbox. It must be so annoying with your postal worker or delivery driver at this time of the year and trying to get things into people's front doors, and there's door wreaths and ribbons in the way. So just have a think about that. Where is your door wreath going to sit on the door? Can somebody knock on the front door, and can all your parcels and letters be delivered easily without a tangle of ribbons getting in the way? Holly. I try to avoid holly at all costs. A beautiful door wreath tones really well with the front door using the traditional colours of reds and greens. This has got a ribbon down at the sort of the 6 o'clock mark, a wider red ribbon. But I must admit that I do not like using holly in door wreaths. It is so prickly to work with, although it is a traditional festive foliage. And notice this one as well has got 2 dried limes, whole limes with little score marks on them. And again, out of preference, I would have put a third one in at the top to make that triangle look. It just looks like it's a pair of headlights or pair of eyes shining out from that door wreath. And you may find it's really difficult to wire up your dried limes. Traditionally, you would wire fruit up by putting a wire right the way through the middle. And what you'll need to do with a lime is actually take your wires sort of inside the grooves that have been cut out of the lime, so you can just adapt the wiring techniques that you might be used to using. Now this wreath is absolutely stunning. Every year I make sure I go to this house and see what wreath they've got. It is absolutely huge. This is a really wide front door. So it's using lots of traditional blue pine. It's got lotus seed heads in, which is the brown seed head with the little holes in it. And if I count them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's got 5 of the lotus seed heads. So if I wanted to replicate this look next year, I would get out just a scrap piece of paper and a pen, draw a donut shape to denote the wreath shape, and then I would circle in these 5 lotus heads, and then you would start to add in, how many orange slices has it got, how many of the red berries have got, and then I'll help you design and create your own door wreath. Now this front door is a really striking blue, and what I love about this door wreath is the colour combinations. So the homeowner has gone for white berries, artificial white berries, a bit like snowberries, to contrast with the front door. This is another door wreath where it's been positioned really low down the door, but if you look at the door, it's got the number, the vertical letterbox, then the door knocker, and then it's got a knob on the door as well. So the door wreath has been hung on the door knob, so it couldn't really go anywhere else any higher, and you probably wouldn't have got your post through over the Christmas period. Now there's one thing I would say about this door wreath: it's got some pine cones in it, and they've been positioned on the inside edge of the door wreath going into the middle, so covering up some of the blue from the front door. And I would say that when you're decorating your door wreath, is to remember that your door wreath has got 3 sides. It's got that sort of top plane, the outer edge and the inner edge too. And I would always encourage you to think about your decorations to get them to spread out from that top side so they cover towards the outside edge as well. Sometimes it can look like all your decorations sort of falling down that central plug hole on your door wreath. So I think this door wreath could be improved slightly just by repositioning the pine cones a little bit, and if they're on a wire, it would be really easy just to move them around a little bit so they didn't look like they were getting lost in the centre of the door wreath. And I do think that part of the charm of a door wreath is it's got that open central area to it, and the more you have sort of going down the plug hole, the less dramatic the door wreath looks. So for a cleaner, crisper look, I would always pull or position your decorations onto the top surface of your door wreath, but then let them blend out to the outer edges as well. So that brings us to the end of our Christmas door wreath roundup. So did you see anything you particularly like and you're particularly inspired by? I must admit I am very much drawn to the more traditional door wreaths that are absolutely jam-packed with decorations, and I think next year I'm going to go for a narrower ribbon, perhaps a velvet ribbon, and I'm going to hang that, totally out of character for me, from the bottom edge of my door wreath rather than hanging it up at that 12 o'clock position. I reckon most of the door wreaths I've shown you have either been florist made or the homeowner has made them. There have been lots of door wreaths I spotted, but I didn't take photographs of them, that have clearly come from the supermarket, and it's that kind of door wreath where you get just the plain blue pine and then a very flat velour ribbon at the top and 2 pine cones at the bottom, which always looks really, really mean. Personally, if I was buying my door wreath from the supermarket, yes, it's easily done for you, but I think I would pull off the ribbon and put my own ribbon on and just add a few more decorations as well to make it a little bit more individual. So I hope you've enjoyed the roundup. Let me know in the comments whether you had any particular favourites and what you've learnt about designing your Christmas door wreath. And tell me where you like positioning your door wreath on your front door. Do you have it high, low, or somewhere in the middle? That's all for me for now, and I'll see you again next time.